There is free money sitting in your paycheck right now that you are probably walking past every single month. Not a discount, not a bonus you have to ask for. Money your employer has already agreed to give you, in writing, that you are simply not collecting. I want to tell you about a guy named David I used to work with. David contributed 3% of his salary to his 401k every paycheck. He thought that was responsible. He thought he was doing the right thing. What David did not know was that his company matched 50 cents on every dollar he contributed, up to 6% of his salary. He was contributing 3%. He needed to contribute 6% to get the full match. David was leaving $1,500 a year on the table, every single year, for 6 years before he finally found out. That is $9,000 he simply never collected, money that was already his, sitting in a policy document he never read carefully, waiting for him to claim it. And here's the part that actually matters for this video. $9,000 sounds bad. It is not the real number. The real number, once you account for what that money would have done if it had been invested instead of skipped, is closer to $31,000 by the time David retires. I am going to show you exactly how that number gets built, because once you see the mechanics behind an employer match, you will understand why financial advisors treat this as close to the only truly risk-free financial decision that exists. If you are new here, my name is Arthur, and this is Arthur Explains Money. This channel exists to take financial decisions that feel small in the moment and show you what they actually cost or what they actually build over time. This is one of the clearest examples of that I have ever found. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Let me explain what an employer match actually is, because a surprising number of people have heard the term without ever fully understanding the mechanics underneath it. When a company offers a 401k match, they are agreeing to contribute additional money to your retirement account, based on how much you personally contribute up to a certain limit. As a common structure looks like this. The company matches 50 cents for every dollar you contribute, up to 6% of your salary. That means if you earn $60,000 a year and you contribute 6%, which is $3,600, your employer adds an additional $1,800 on top of that. You put in $3,600. They put in $1,800. Your account receives $5,400 total for an out-of-pocket cost to you of $3,600. That $1,800 is not a loan. It is not a bonus tied to performance. It is not contingent on the company having a good year. It is part of your compensation package, agreed to the moment you were hired, sitting there every single pay period, waiting for you to claim your half of the agreement. If you contribute less than 6%, you are not just contributing less. You are forfeiting part of the match, permanently, every single pay period that passes. Here is where this becomes the most important financial decision available to almost anyone with access to a workplace retirement plan. And I want to walk through the actual math slowly, because the number at the end is going to be larger than most people expect. Let us go back to David. $60,000 a year. Company match of 50 cents on the dollar, up to 6%. David contributes 3%, $1,800 a year. He receives a match of $900. Combined contribution to his account, $2,700 a year. Had David contributed the full 6%, $3,600 a year, he would have received the full match of $1,800. Combined contribution, $5,400 a year. The difference between what David actually did and what he could have done is $2,700 a year. Every single year. For as long as he stayed at that company and kept under contributing. David did this for 6 years before a coworker happened to mention the match percentage in passing, almost as a throwaway comment. And David went home and actually read the plan documents for the first time. $2,700 a year for 6 years is $16,200 in missed combined contributions. Of that, $9,000 was specifically the employer match portion he never collected. But here's the part that makes this so much more expensive than it first appears. That $16,200 was never sitting in a drawer. It was supposed to be invested, growing the entire time. At an average annual return of 8%, Money that should have started compounding 6 years earlier does not just sit there waiting for you to notice the mistake. It keeps growing on the path it would have taken the moment it finally starts. Except now it has 6 fewer years to do it in. By the time David retires, at a conservative estimate, the difference between the account he actually has and the account he would have had if he contributed the full 6% from day one is approximately $31,000. That is the real cost of 3 percentage points, sustained for 6 years, before anyone happened to mention it to him. Now I want to address the obvious question, because I know some of you are doing this exact calculation in your head right now. What if David genuinely could not afford to contribute 6%? This is a completely fair point, and it deserves a real answer rather than a dismissive one. If contributing the full match percentage would mean you cannot pay rent, cannot buy groceries, cannot cover an emergency, then no one should tell you to prioritize a retirement match over your immediate survival. That would be bad advice dressed up as good advice. But here's what I want you to actually check before you assume that is your situation. The gap between 3% and 6% of a $60,000 salary is exactly $75 a month, not $7,500, $75. For most people earning a stable salary, the obstacle is not genuinely that $75 does not exist anywhere in the budget. The obstacle is that $75 currently has somewhere else to go. Usually somewhere that does not feel like a sacrifice, which is exactly why it never gets reconsidered. A subscription that gets renewed without thought. A slightly more expensive grocery habit. A streaming bundle nobody really watches half of. None of these decisions feel significant individually, which is exactly why they are so easy to leave unexamined. Even while a guaranteed 50% return on investment sits unclaimed in the same paycheck. I want to be precise about that phrase, because it is not an exaggeration. A 50-cent match on every dollar contributed is a 50% immediate return the moment the money lands in your account, before the market has done anything at all. There is no investment available anywhere, at any level of risk, that reliably guarantees a 50% return the instant you put money in. The stock market does not promise that. Real estate does not promise that. Nothing promises that, except an employer match you are not currently collecting in full. Here is the part of this most people never think about. What happens to that lost match money over the following decades? Not just the year it was missed. Money that compounds for 30 years grows differently than money that compounds for 24 years, even if it is the exact same dollar amount contributed at different points. We have talked about this principle on this channel before, in a different context, but it is worth restating here, because it explains why missing a match early in your career is so much more expensive than missing it later. $1 of unclaimed match money at 25 has nearly 4 decades to compound before a typical retirement age. The same dollar of unclaimed match money at 55 has barely a decade left. The earlier in your career this mistake happens, the more expensive each missed dollar becomes, which means the people most likely to be under-contributing, usually younger employees still early in their careers and still figuring out their budgets, are also the people for whom this mistake is the most costly. This is not a coincidence. It is exactly why this particular financial decision deserves more attention than it usually gets. The stakes are highest precisely when people are least likely to be paying close attention to their retirement plan paperwork. So here's what I actually want you to do after this video, because there is one specific action that matters here, and it takes less time than the video itself. Open your benefits portal or call your HR department and ask one direct question. What percentage of my salary do I need to contribute to receive the full employer match, and what percentage am I currently contributing? If those two numbers do not match, you have just found money that already belongs to you. Sitting unclaimed, with no risk, no market timing required, and no complicated decision to make. Increase your contribution to meet the match threshold. If you cannot do it all at once, increase it by 1 percentage point now and another percentage point with your next raise, before that raise has a chance to disappear into lifestyle the way we have talked about in other videos. This is one of the only financial moves where there is genuinely no real argument against it once you can afford the contribution at all. It is not a bet. It is not a guess about where the market is headed. It is simply collecting compensation you were already promised. The moment you were hired, that has been quietly sitting there the entire time you were not paying attention to it. I think about David sometimes, not because his mistake was unusual, because it was so ordinary. He was not careless with money in any way that would have been obvious to anyone watching him, including himself. He budgeted. He paid his bills on time. He simply never read one document closely enough to realize there was a second half to his retirement contribution that required him to do one specific thing he was not doing. That is the entire story behind almost every missed employer match I have ever come across. Not recklessness, just a number nobody checked. If you have access to a retirement match through work, and you are not entirely sure whether you are receiving the full amount, that uncertainty is worth resolving this week. Not eventually. Because every pay period that passes while you remain unsure is a pay period where the math we just walked through is quietly working against you instead of for you. I am Arthur. This is Arthur Explains Money, where we take the financial decisions that feel small and show you exactly what they cost or what they build over time. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one.